Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to the show. I have Elle Knowlton here with me today. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, sweetest listener. What an honor to be in this container today. Hi.
I am pretty excited about today. And there's a couple of places I want to go. Normally, I don't read bios, but I feel like, or I'll read like a little snippet, but I feel like I want to read it. I feel
Awesome.
like you encapsulated why I love you so much. And we'll get into how we connected and all of the things, but I want to read it and then I want to feel how that lands for you, having it being recited back to you. And if there's anything that
Mm,
you want to add, does that sound good?
sounds beautiful.
All right. Maybe even just close your eyes and take it in.
Full receivership. Thank you for the
Just an invitation.
invitation.
All right. So Elle is a beautiful old soul with vibrant energy of the future. She carries and cultivates codes and authenticity, wonder, queerness, and the rebel heart. Elle has a way of reminding the world it is our birthright to be, to play, to create, to listen. She wants you here, to take up the space only you can. After graduating college, Elle found herself in a rich void of confusion about life. She turned to alcohol to soothe, briefly embodying an addict archetype. In November of 2020, she signed a deal with sobriety, and slowly the light cracked back in. Unable to run from herself, Elle met the magic in the mundane, cultivating a daily spiritual practice to demand her remembrance of the divinity of life on the daily. Elle is here to be of service in humanity's remembering that this earthly plane is one to live fully. She is a gifted vocalist and has long written mantra music to soothe her soul. She's been described as an up and coming voice meant to guide and hold others in their self expression. And she is now working with souls looking to cultivate relationship with their vocal channel as a voice doula. Whoop. How does that feel?
Oh, that felt really beautiful, is how that felt. Ow. Oh my gosh. I might have to take that practice into my own world to just remind myself who the fuck I am on a more
Right?
regular basis. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
hits
Thank you.
differently when it's like reciprocated back to you, right?
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to add? We're going to like totally go in all of the places. And I mean, everything that I read, I mean, I had full body chills and I was just telling myself, yes, yes, yes,
Mm.
more, more, more. I want more. Because you really do embody these codes of authenticity. Your energy was so nourishing to me when, I mean, it was like the moment that we connected, it was just so grounding and so nourishing and so embracing. Your energy is very welcoming and embracing. And I know that you carry those codes. So, anything you want to kind of add to that about receiving that, about your journey, about who you are? Just let's dive in.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say that you're able to name that in me because it is something that you carry and cultivate so beautifully
Mm.
yourself. And that was also my experience with you when we landed in our sacred connection. And just, I was so inspired by your ability to bring words through your vocal channel and just say exactly what the heck you mean. I'm still moved by that when I tune into
Mm.
your podcast episodes and just the way truth is so accessible. That
Mm.
moves me hugely. So thank you for naming that. And I name it right the heck back in you. Beautiful. Yeah, but that's a gorgeous practice, I feel. I was recently reflecting on how so much of this life I've landed in is one of woman to the max in
Mm.
my physical expression, my gender expression, and also my energetic and spiritual expression. The divine feminine is what I work with. It's what I work with the rose. I cultivate relationship with goddess, and I am most enchanted and enthralled and intoxicated and moved by what it means to feel into woman, into
Mm.
anima, into the rich life sustaining, life creating energies of this frequency. And so to sit in that moment of receivership as you voiced who I am right back to me was a beautiful experience of permission to let that be. And yeah, I feel I'm in a season of life right now where I'm really working and knocking on the door of divine masculine and integrating structure and yeah, all the beautiful qualities of masculine into my own brain and body. So thank you for letting me flex my very strong muscles of receivership, and also
Mm,
just wanted to allow that into the space that is something I'm actively working on currently, is cultivating and offering and yeah, being the captain of my own life as opposed to receiving it, also being in the sacred reciprocity of giving right back. So
beautiful.
yeah.
And isn't it funny when like the codes that we carry and the what our soul is asking us to, bring forward? Because I often get this, which is why I love the podcast. People often perceive me as very confident and like, wow, she's got it figured out and she can just say what's on her heart. And that's actually been one of the most challenging
Mm,
pieces of my spiritual leadership and my expression and my integrity. And even though I'm doing it, and of course, we know how much work it takes, how much internal work it takes, there's so much more that I hide. There's so much more that I hold back on. There's so much that I don't share. And so just you reflecting that back to me is so supportive. And this is why I think it is important to have containers, to have intimate relationships, to have conversations like this with depth and richness, because it matters. Like that moment, I will remember whenever I get somebody emailing me about the podcast or somebody sending me a Facebook message after one of my posts, or just a family member or a friend sharing something about how they see me. It's like, oh, okay, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I can keep going, because it can feel really isolating. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And I don't know, maybe let's move into how we connected. And if there's anything that you want to add, I want to hear your experience about how we connected. But if there's anything that you want to add to that piece, because I feel the same about you. I'm like, man, she's just cool. She just knows who she is. She's just got it down. And I don't know. I just was like, man, I want to be more like Elle. She's just,
mhm.
she's just chill. She's just cool. Feel like she probably has no enemies. Feel like everybody just loves her. And right, we're mirrors for each other in a lot of ways. And I think that's really important, because that's how we learn through relationship, and we learn, right, the mirrors of our blind spots, for example. And as we know, we are everything and nothing. And we carry all fractals of all frequencies and spectrums and emotions within us. So if we get triggered by someone, it lives inside of us too. And if we are inspired by someone, of course it lives inside of us too. So I just think it's really helpful to have these conversations. And I feel this is what the world is craving more than ever, is to just be like, yeah, I may seem confident, but I actually have very, very deep moments of feeling isolated and not wanting to express. So let's go there, and then we'll get into why these intimate containers are so powerful to help us see ourselves more.
Yeah. So, sweetest listener, we met in the container Lindsay brings to the mic every once in a while, and I do in my own world too, called Fluorescence, led by Blue of Earth and Reggie River Bear, queens on this planet. And they offer, yeah, a beautiful 6-week course. And Lindsay and I both enrolled in the same chapter, if you will. And as fate would have it, we were in an accountability group together. So for 6 weeks, every week, ourselves and a few other women would hop on a Zoom and just drop the fuck in and let our shit be seen and voice what was coming up and coming out and who we were becoming, and watching each other become was such a divine process. I certainly was so here in witnessing your becoming in this process, Lindsay. And like, oh my God, just the layers of of continued exploration and the season of life you were in your great transition from Florida to North Carolina and the closing of the house and just this big shift, this big, beautiful shift from maiden to mother within these 6 weeks and beyond. And I remember dropping it in person together and we were calling on the names of your future children. And then here they are they're part of this podcast right now, listener. And oh my gosh, just to witness the sweet beginnings of relationship. And we also had gorgeous opportunity to drop into song together. That memory lives in me. That was a huge inspiration for how I want to continue to move through the world and the offerings that I even envisioned for myself. You unlocked that a huge key of that. So
Mm.
yeah, we landed in sisterhood and we're carrying the baton forward.
Yeah, that was a absolute portal. Like I made a baby in that
You made
portal.
a baby in that portal.
I birthed a lot of things in that portal. So again, thank you for reflecting that back to me. And it's funny because one of the reasons why, well, first of all, I hadn't signed up for anything in so long. I hadn't had any mentors. It was a very inward time. And when Blue had started to share about the container, it was just an immediate yes. And I'm so grateful that we got to meet in person, right? It was 6 weeks virtual. We know the potency of that, but also just to be in the flesh is so much more powerful. And you invited me into the Airbnb that you were staying at in Topanga, California, which was amazingly gorgeous with these insane views and so sacred. And it just so happened that everyone ended up having, like, I got there and we were all hung out as a group. There were other, sisters that were staying there. And then everyone kind of had their own thing going on. And then it was just you and I, and we got to just connect deeper. And I want to circle back to one of the pieces that you were sharing, because I'm even learning more about you and your work with the feminine and what is meaningful to you and the lineage of the rose and what it means to embody this archetype. And again, as I'm going back and reading your bio, right, like cultivating codes and authenticity and queerness. And we talked a lot about your queerness journey, how that was with yourself, with your friendships, with your family. And I'm sure that there was some growing pains with that, but it seems like you felt pretty confident in who you were. And it feels like from what you shared, your family was very accepting. And I think it's important to talk about because gender is a sensitive topic. And when we hear words like feminine and masculine get thrown around, it can be confusing. And so I'm like, ooh, I want to go here. This beautiful being who like fully embraces your queerness and is like such an emissary of the divine feminine, which I'm learning more and more about. I kind of want to just hear your perspective on that and like this openness. Like I feel like you're this pioneer in like, don't put me in a box. Like it doesn't need to be in a box, right? And it can be fluid and it can be dynamic and it doesn't matter. And we don't need these labels, but that's kind of what the human mind does, right? The human mind always wants to make it this binary thing. So yeah, I kind of want to see where you want to take that, because I do think it could support people in loosening the grips a little bit of like, oh, just because I'm this gender means I need to hold these specific types of traits or the understanding that again, we carry the masculine and the feminine within us energetically and what that actually means, and that we're here to self-express and it's going to look different for all of us. So I would love to hear, because I want to learn from you as well, because I don't identify as queer. One of my best guy friends is queer, and I learn a lot from him. And I think I told you about him, my buddy Pat,
Yeah, you
who I
did.
talked about on my last episode. And he sent me a message like, "Thank you so much," because I did a podcast episode with him, and it's just that same piece of like, I really want to hold people. I want to uplift people. Like I want to showcase people who, it doesn't matter if they feel like they're making a difference or not, or if they feel like they have this huge platform or not, or if they feel like they're not ready. I just want to showcase people who are doing things their way and who are doing things differently. And I want them to be able to talk about it so that we can learn from each other. So wherever you want to take it from there, sister.
Mm. I'm having such a moment of like, I wish this experience for everyone. Like, I wish the frequency of love for everyone to tap
Mm,
into like this. Like my heart is fully just buzzing with what it
mm,
means to just get to look at you and love on you and have it
mm.
reflected right back. Bless this. Yeah. Wow. What a beautiful, beautiful thought train. Yeah, my story with queerness carries so much privilege in the sense that I have never experienced any maliciousness, any questioning, any blatant judgment or repercussions of any kind by wearing this label. And stepping into it was an effortless process. And it just simply was, again, just reminding that we're here to be. And when we are, it kind of has a ripple effect that allows it to be. And yeah, my my world allowed big exploration in terms of like just the time that I manifested into this body on this planet, the generation that I happen to be a part of, and also the liberal nature of my family and where I grew up in the world in New Mexico. And um, queerness was something I saw in front of my face since I was a very young kid. I had mentors in my world that were queer. I saw gay marriage. It was very familiar. The labels were present. I never had any sort of strong reaction against or towards it. Um, and I often sat in openness with female friendships when I was growing up, where we would just talk about other women and voice how beauty is such an ethereal thing. And to tap into it in that same gender expression is such a fun thing. It was titillating, it was exciting. And um, to reflect on it now is funny because my whole childhood group of core best friends were all queer now. So it really just was a microcosm of brewing and
Yeah.
beginning to play with these thoughts of like, yeah, could we deviate from all the movies and the stories of prince and princesses? And can we just talk about how gorgeous Cinderella is instead of the prince? Like it was very natural. And I really had a sweet nod from spirit in my expression of it during the pandemic. During the pandemic was a very intense time for the collective and also in my individual world where I exited a 3-year long relationship. I began to pursue sobriety. I was really facing off with who I was and how I moved through the world and was in a big season of dark night of the soul. I was very isolated. I removed myself from the world. I fully was embodying that addict archetype and just my expression was very small. And I had a really hard time in exiting my relationship. It was very enmeshed and a lot of themes of codependency. And so we would continue to have conversations and FaceTimes. And one day I declared that we were having a final conversation. And this was going to be the door that we closed in order to, yeah, let it die and let the rebirth happen as individuals in this world. And I remember sitting in a park and saying goodbye to this man, tears streaming down my face. And I remember hanging my head as soon as I hung up the phone. And then just feeling like a big gush of wind and feeling the cottonwoods above me dance and just really having a moment of like, even in the ache, bless this aliveness. And when I lifted my head, one of my neighbors had a big rainbow queer flag
Mm,
waving in the wind outside their house. And I remember just laughing and being like, okay, okay, heard. It's time to explore
mm,
this. I see the rainbow. I resonate with it. That's one of the reasons in my subconscious mind that I wanted to exit this relationship because I was ready for the exploration of the feminine. And that was literally the simplest little light switch on of like, okay, it's time to walk down this path and really step into and pursue. And I feel this is true in so many of our stories that the pandemic was just this great tower that allowed everything to crumble and to watch us rebuild ourselves. And I wanted to build some rainbow into me in the reconstruction. And again, it was very effortless. And this world with dating apps and things makes it especially accessible. And so I just began to put feelers out into the world and began to play with the labels, of which there are so many. And I was very passionate and attached to um, what I was calling myself. And from the get was voicing to my family that this was likely going to be an evolution, and wanted the label of queer because it had just enough anonymity for me to be able to play within that umbrella. And
can you maybe just like in your words share what queer means to you? Because some people like, I've heard varying descriptions, and I think it's always helpful to just hear it from your lens. What does it mean?
yeah. Oh, I love that question. I think queerness to me is rebellion within the sexual spectrum, and an inherent openness to romantic connection with whoever lights your soul on fire,
Mm.
regardless of what their expression is in the physical
Mm.
and mental.
Full body
Yeah.
check.
Mhm. Yeah. So put that label on and
It's
felt
like
like
a
I was going
labelless label.
exactly.
In a
Exactly.
world that wants to label, it's like, all right, we'll give you this.
You can pigeonhole me into a rainbow, but that's it. I won't give you any more details. Yes, exactly. So
Mm.
yeah, began to speak and connect with women, and felt like I was going through a second puberty, had all these feelings of like, how do you do this? What, oh my goodness, imposter syndrome, questioning. And yeah, in my first exchanges with women, it was just inherently so effortless and beautiful, and offered such spiritual depth in the realm of these masculine and feminine energies. And I really was checking myself and my conditioning around what I expected in a man in partnership and also in sexual relationship, and how inherently I was taught and conditioned that the feminine takes the submissive role. And there is such beauty and, again, receivership in that archetypal energy, but also suddenly through queerness, I was able to challenge just that construct and allow myself to show up with an empowerment and a fire, and to get to play with that and witness it be amorphous in real time, because the roles weren't predetermined,
Mm.
and that was epiphany I've taken just into so many places where the world loves to put us in those boxes and give us those labels and prescribe the to-do list, and to challenge it and be like, well, what if I did this instead? And it was delicious.
Mm. Immediately when you were talking about, right, right, because it's like the submissive feminine is kind of what
Mhm.
I'm hearing from you is in, and I'm just thinking about the dark feminine archetypes, and I'm thinking about my, home birth, physiological birth experience. And I'm just thinking, there's going to be a lot of fierceness, and there's going to be a lot of emotions, and a lot of empowered, powerful movements and sounds and primal just
Mm.
utterings. And it's powerful, right? It's so powerful. And so I think you're just a disruptor in that way. And I just love that your soul chose, right? An experience where with this piece of your life, it did feel effortless. And so I hope that you don't feel, because I know a lot of people do struggle, especially with family dynamics, and in a world that still is, it can be scary, to be your authentic self, especially as it relates to gender. And I just see it as like the gift that you get to be that beacon of light for people, because you get to shine your full self. And there's other areas of your life that have been a bit more challenging. And I'm curious to know, with the addiction, with the alcoholism, was that related to the breakup? I know that there has been, I don't remember if it's exactly in your bio, but I know we talked about it, right? After graduating from college, a lot of your journey in terms of evolution has been around who you came here to be, and what are your next steps, and how do you get to show up, and how do you get to serve, and how do you get to be your full self in service to you and in service to the whole. So I'm curious to know if there's any overlap there, and if you want to share just, yeah, the moments that have been challenging for you in terms of your gifts and how you get to show up as your true self.
Yeah. Wow. Such beauty. I, yeah. So I had, I'm thinking of that beautiful Brene Brown quote that says, genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger,
Mhm.
in terms of the realm of addiction. And that was certainly true for my story and so many of our stories, but had grown up not directly witnessing how drugs and alcohol affected my lineage, but hearing stories and witnessing, my cousins going to treatment centers and hearing stories of uncles past and the lives that we'd lost along the way. And it was very present to me that addiction was something that was in my field, but I didn't really know what it meant as a kid. I remember having a lot of fear around it, just being very spooked by it. And I was a big rule follower, big perfectionist, and took the dare program so seriously in school and just couldn't comprehend like what it would mean to shift consciousness and pursue evasion of self as opposed to a vitality and dreaming. And then I got to know that when life allowed me the opportunity to run from it. So I have a story with sexual assault, and in 2019 experienced just violation on my brain and body. And after that event, I began to run, and alcohol was my vice, and just used it on a very colloquial daily basis to forget. And rather than feeling, I isolated from the world and felt so much shame and carried so much guilt and carried the narrative in my head for a year, a full year of my life, that I was responsible for this and that it was all my doing, and just taking so much responsibility for something that was absolutely a violation. And it put me in the world of aloneness and running from self and really being afraid to feel, and really almost experiencing like a mind body disconnect from my body. I felt like I was living like a foot away from my actual physical form, and just in that briefly dissociated space of like, I don't even want to be here in this body, because if I'm to feel it, what will that be? I don't know if I'm capable of that. And I certainly was not capable of asking for help or asking for eyes to help me see and hold the story. Um, yeah. So alcohol became a very beautiful medicine for that season of life. I'm thinking of Gabor Mate and how he voices that addiction isn't the evil, it's the situation beneath it. Like addiction is actually very wise. It's very wise. It's life sustaining in circumstances where we're taking care of ourselves in the best way that we know how. We're using these, substances on this earthly plane to soothe for a moment. And it's our job to go deeper, but it's not, there must be compassion in the process because we're running from something. And to meet what we're running from with love being the path we're walking towards. So I hold this story with a lot of love, but that is where the darkness came. And again, light started to creep back in when I finally allowed myself to be seen in it, and allowed myself to be seen in just how big the ache was. Like literally would look in the mirror and see my physical expression is so muted, and the vitality in my eyes just wasn't there. And I started to begin spiritual practice and sit with myself and notice how I had forgotten to dream, and how my relationship with the unconscious realm was mute. Literally in dream world and in waking world, I didn't have aspiration. I was just here. And even in as I was here, I was a foot behind myself. So it was a very slow road to come back into this body, and psychedelics actually played a huge, huge role in my healing journey and in my pursuit of sobriety. Um, I was in ketamine. I did 6 treatments of ketamine therapy um, that allowed me to take myself out of my life and see all that had gone down with a lens of neutrality. And it softened the edge and let me come back home.
Mm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think what you're expressing, well, first and foremost, I want to ask this question before. So you did go through, you did express, you did go through a lot of shame and judgment in the beginning. And I
Mm.
think that it's so powerful to have this, to, for you to share your experience because it's part of the journey, right? It's like we have a traumatic experience or a traumatic experience is reopened, right? There's something that happens in our lives that feels unbearable, which I know everybody can relate to at some point in their lifetime. And then we're met with the external world, all of the vices, all of the places that we go to run away. And I mean, I used to hide in my work, in my service work. I used to hide in working out. And so it can be anything, right? It's like we tell ourselves like, right, we just going to do this thing and we're going to become obsessed and we're just going to keep going, keep going and keep going. And it can turn into an avoidance. It can turn into, right, a disassociation to not meet ourselves. And so just the arc of hearing your process of the experience and then what you move through and how the alcohol came in and the shame and the judgment and all of the emotions and going to the depths and then you looking in the mirror and then being like, right, it's just like you had that moment of wait, oh, okay, it's time, right? And you started moment by moment creating these little apertures of just like, what is that? What is that? Okay, like, okay, I did this today. Okay, I can do this. Like, okay, I'm going to take one step forward today. And maybe we take 5 steps back and then 5 steps forward and then 2 steps back. And just, it's such a beautiful reflection, I believe, of our evolutionary journey as humans, because even though it's not the exact same experience that we all face, we all know those feelings of shame and judgment and then avoidance and then having this little glimmer of hope. The same thing when you had that rupture in your relationship and the pride flag was right outside your house, or when you stepped outside and you just had that moment, right? It's like that's what it is. And it's like the grace of the divine shows us there's more. Like you're at rock bottom, or it may feel like you're at rock bottom, but there's something here for you. And it does take a willingness. And I think the compassion piece is so powerful, right? Because it's not about the addiction, it's about the pain. And this is why I love these conversations, because can we all just stop running around like we don't have pain? And thinking that nobody else, right, has pain, right? It's so isolating. And so I just want to thank you for your courage to be open about it, sharing this, because it does help people ground into the human experience. And that is what this podcast is about, is in our humanity, we find our divinity. That's exactly what you just expressed, right?
Mm.
This is it. This is the journey. So you've been 3 years alcohol free. And I want to talk about the voice doula. That is
Mm.
Elle Knowlton.
Mm.
um, yeah. Let me just give it back to you for a minute, and then I've got some surprises in store for our listeners.
Yeah. Wow, Lindsay, thank you for that reflection, truly. And yeah, I mean it so fully when I say I've experienced that same lesson from you and your sharing of the aches and pains and the way you showed up recently on the mic with tears of story of breast implants and this pain and this feeling into it and just sharing, letting us see each other in this. Like there is no greater beauty I know than letting ourselves be seen. It is divine. It is connection in and of itself, and it's so deeply humanizing. And again, right therein lies the divinity of it all. It's so inspiring, and I just live for the magnetism of the dark night of the soul too. I really am so moved by the way I seek out those stories to remind myself that all is well, and all we can trust the timeline, we can trust the seasons. And yeah, to witness people's resonance with my own story is always just like such a deep connector, such a
Mm.
deep moment of staring another human in the eyes and being like, I see you and I see you seeing me and I see you further because of it. So yeah, thank you for creating space for me to talk about it. But yeah, voice doula, hello. This title is one that I still feel, oh, such a flirtationship with in terms of getting to wear it and deeming
It
myself.
feels juicy.
It's
I love
so
it.
juicy.
Knowing that I have a doula and I'm like in all things doulaism. I don't know if that's a word. I'm like voice
Yes.
doula. Yes. Yes,
Yes.
yes, 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 yes. I love it. I support it.
Yes. Yes. So I did not coin that term by any means. I believe KJ Song was the initial like full trademarking of that title. And I stumbled upon their channel on the internet and fully fell down their rabbit hole and have had sessions with them. And it shifted my world entirely because my whole life I've moved through the world as a singer and have been in voice lessons and piano lessons and music lessons since I was 4 years old and studied it in college and have had all the technical understandings of the literal instrument within the base of our face and all the many years and traditions of vocal expression and yeah. So I've had a big heavy activation in the world of knowledge and anatomy of it all, and as I continue to collect years on this planet and my spiritual side just is more and more alivened and my reverence for this vitality thing continues to activate, I can't help but be in this eternal blossoming of the profundity of the vocal channel, the profundity of this throat chakra, and the literal joy and bliss that being able to be a creature of expression and co create with the divine through these folds in my neck. Like it inspires me and moves me to a level of glee that I've never found anywhere else. It is the singular place in my life that I have found a consistent and ever present flow state. It is by all means my purpose here. And that in and of itself has been a journey beyond words. But yeah, so I have begun a practice with myself more than anyone else of meeting my voice, allowing sounds to come through, releasing judgment, releasing conditioning of what sounds good, what sounds pretty, what wants to come through, whether it's mantra or light language or yeah, opera on a day or R&B songs and covers. And it has been a season of reclamation and talk about authenticity. It's where I've begun to anchor in that frequency by really tuning in with what the body wants to move through on the daily. It is such a channel of alchemical expression. It is this place where we can move feelings in and out of the body as we are experiencing this vibratory universe. May we harness the vibrations within our own brain and body and let them be part of the fabric. So,
Mm, yes. Preach. I'm at church. I'm at church. Preach, sister. Mm-mm-mm-mm.
yes, 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 yes. So those are a few words of about voice doulaship.
It's so funny as you were talking about, well, I would imagine, I'm not, I think we talked about this a little bit when we had our intimate time together in Topanga, but you know, I would imagine when I don't know if you've gotten lessons or if you've always like been able to kind of share this gift, but like the perfectionism piece and again what pop culture and just maybe having dreams and aspirations, for example, of becoming this singer on stage and just I love that you expressed that piece around just whatever sound wants to emerge because right before you shared that right there, then there's my piece of like, oh, I don't really think my voice sounds that great. And letting that, and like, man, I really wish I could sing. Right. And so it's what we do. And so, right, it's like some of us have these gifts and then the world tells us, right, there's so much external pressure that we then end up like, creating all of this inner turmoil or we feel comparisonitis, for example, and we're like, what's my role in the world? What's my gift? And I love that you expressed, right? Because especially for eons, right? Women are really coming back into their vocal expression, and it can be in the form of storytelling, in the form of an oracle, it can be in the form of chanting, it can be in the form of light language, it can be in the form of song. And it actually really doesn't matter how it sounds. What matters is the vibration behind it, the essence behind it, the integrity behind it. And that is key. And so, do you have any feedback on, because this is my work? I do, this is what I do, right? It's like breath, movement, sound. Sound is so important, right? To allow energy to be expelled from the body, to be in the visceral experience of life. It's just, it's this powerful mechanism for self-expression, literally from the womb center of creation up through the portal of our heart and out into the world. And so there's, and I mean, I just rattled off a few, and so did you. There's so many other ways to vocally self-express. And again, the world needs us in our purest expression. So maybe just give a little nugget of like, how, I know how I would support, how I support people in that self-expression, but coming from someone, a gifted vocalist like yourself, do you have any feedback on how people can just kind of start to tap in, like what that could look like for someone who may be new and it may be a little scary in the beginning?
Fuck yeah. Let's go. Two things immediately come to mind. Two of my favorite practices. The first is something that I'll open any session ever with, which is a chakra check-in and allowing the voice to be the instrument of expression for these centers in the body. And this is not my practice of origin, but I was gifted the opportunity to practice it with others. So again, this comes from KJ song, but it is a beautiful practice of dropping into body, getting outrageously comfortable, whether that means yoga squat, lying straight down, whatever comfort feels like in that moment, whatever the most embodied way you can show up is, but to be in that fullest expression, dropping, close eyes. And then I like to tune into sacral, heart, and then head. So
As we
yeah,
just talked about that, right?
exactly. So I'll invite an individual to feel into their sacral chakra, allowing as much time and space for this expression as necessary. Just really feeling the aliveness of that center. Is it stagnant? Is it in motion? Are you not feeling connected to it? Are you associating colors or emotions? Just asking it questions, seeing if visuals come to mind when you tune into it. And then when it feels most authentic to you, connecting in that mind's eye through the whitest of light, the throat chakra to that sacral chakra, and asking if it has anything to say or express. And that can be utilized through moaning or screaming or laughing or verbalizing, putting sentences into the world. It could be a familiar song. The other day I had House of the Rising Sun just like sitting in my sacral chakra, and we took a moment and we just sang that to the fullest, and it was beautiful. And then I'll invite individuals to bounce to the heart and do that same experience. Ask it questions. What does it feel like? What's coming through? And just letting the voice activate it, moving the energy up and out, or calling it in through the channel. Sometimes it's silent, and that is perfect. And lastly, doing that for the head as well. And it's just such a beautiful, intentional practice of any sound I make here is perfect. I've had days where I've had to really sift through the judgment as my heart chakra has just wanted to moan, and just like getting comfortable with making whale-ish sounds and not feeling kooky and just like letting it out because it was so true to that expression in the moment. That in and of itself is such an act of reclamation and space holding for self. So that is one of my favorites. And then the other that has become legitimate spiritual practice in my life is honoring the fuck out of songs I have stuck in my head and treating them as if they're visitations from creation, because I
Totally.
fully resonate with the philosophy that we're all within a big blanket of co-creation with this source thing. And any ideas that come through, any creations asking to come through you, or previous creations that already exist in the world that are visiting you, are there for a reason. And it has become a beautiful thing that I've begun a very devoted journal to, of like, this is what was stuck in my head on this day, and just honoring the lyrics that are visiting, honoring the messages my subconscious mind has in song in its brain, and just noticing how they always are applying directly to what I'm experiencing in my life. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm dying. There's so many synchronicities. This is why I love this, right? Okay, there's so many places I want to go. So the first practice, okay, do you have like a little bit of time to go a little bit over?
Of course. Of
I
course.
feel like I've said this on every episode. I'm like, okay, I'm not putting a 1 hour time cap on these suckers anymore. So the first piece, I'm excited to do that in my own time, because actually, as I have a baby in my sacral chakra at the moment, I'm getting little messages from him, and a huge roar just wanted to come out. And it's funny because so much of my fears, I'm not afraid. I mean, I'm actually not really afraid much of anything in my labor experience except my fear of going to the depths of my being and being as loud and primal as humanly possible. That's what I've been moving through. So I'm excited to take that practice in, because that's what I've been cultivating, is like, where am I holding back with myself, with my husband, with my midwife, like with my birth team, just really feeling so held to be in this, so like this vulnerable primal state. And so that was the first piece that emerged. And in my heart, it was pretty silent. My heart was like, we're good. Like, we feel content. So I love that you also acknowledge that silence is also a sound. So I'm definitely gonna bring that into my practices as I'm moving through this. And then for the second piece, I mean, I wake up all the time singing songs from sleeping in the astral planes. And I do the same thing where I'll go and play it, and then I'll journal, and I have songs that come through. So I had I had a beautiful sales conversation with a previous group client who decided to sign on with me privately today. And I always do a dance party, after those conversations, where I'm celebrating myself for, having the courage to ask, make an offer, ask the question, go deep with someone, the other person, right? The co-creation, the alignment, the saying yes, the trusting in my divine path and how I get to support people, and the other individual saying yes. And I just always feel myself just wanting to have this dance party. And so, you want to know my song that always comes through?
What song?
Okay. Starship, we built this city on rock and roll. This song has been with me for like, I don't even know how many years. And it's whenever spirit is like, can you just fucking let go and like not make anything about this and just have fun? And it always puts me in a vibe. It's like the same vibe. And I ended up looking it up several months back. Like, what is this song? Because the lyrics, I'm like, I'm unsure. And I can't remember the exact details, but it was written about, I think it was like a time in California where they were actually closing down music venues and like wanting to stop people from expressing and like kind of rein it in on having concerts and live music and all of these things. And it was more of this like, we're going to do this and we're going to do it our way and we're going to sing about it. And it was like, it's like a fight song for self-expression. So it just makes me chuckle whenever that comes through, because it happened today. And I'm like, there it is again, this random ass song. The spirit just wants to remind me to keep doing my thing and to have fun doing it, because it always just makes me chuckle. I'm not thinking fight song in it, like, yeah, self-expression. I'm just dying laughing at the song.
We built this city on rock and roll.
I'm telling
So
you.
good.
So that's what it's about. We built this city on rock and roll. So that's what it is. It's like, no, you're not going to tell us no. This is
Yeah.
what we're staying. We're doing this. Um, I feel like I'm blushing now because I've never done it.
That is incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna blare that as soon as we get off today and dance around.
And then the last piece before we begin to close up is when I told you I was pregnant, you had a song come through.
That was insane, Lindsay. That was such a moment I'll never forget.
So can
Yeah.
you talk about that for a moment?
Yes, it was so mystical. Yeah, Lindsay reached out to our fluorescent sisterhood and voiced her pregnancy. And immediately I was overcome with such emotion and just immediately reached out to you and was like, I fucking see you. I fucking see you. Holy shit. Just having a moment. Yeah. So feeling it so deeply. And it was so odd as soon as I just began to sit in the pondering of like, what gender may come through? What will this little soul's expression be in this physical world? I had the song from The Lion King, the Broadway show, that goes, He lives in you. Hey, it's gorgeous. There's stunning African language. I don't know the actual name of the language part of it, but it is like this ethereal song. And
It's
I
on my
was
birth
just,
playlist now, by the way, because of you. Yeah.
oh,
So you're going to be a part of my sacred ceremony because it's definitely being played.
oh my God. That hurts my heart in the best way. Ow. But it was so wild because I was like, Lindsay, are you having a boy? I think he lives in you. And that is how the cookie crumbled. So
And most of the people thought the cookie was going to crumble another way, including myself. And I've talked about this on the show, but I have a more vocal little spirit baby girl who will eventually come through, but the little boy, who's a little more reserved and, doesn't need to be the loudest in the room, decided to come through first. And so that was so fun because I've also jammed out to that song so many times. So the fact that you sent that to me and I got to, yeah, just remember that moment and just connect with him is, like you said, it's tribal, it's ethereal, it's just a really beautiful song. So, and I didn't know the song before you shared it. So this is the power of just going for it and like sharing what's on our heart with people. So I want to play. Did you know this surprise was coming? Is this what you
I did.
before we hit record, I told Elle that I had a surprise, but I guess, I think I gave all my secrets away because this song, well, maybe you can share just in a brief nutshell how this song emerged from you and when and where. And then I do want to play it. And I would love for you, I'm going to close my eyes. I won't play, maybe I'll just play a little snippet of it. But when you had, okay, let me just first ask the question of the story behind this song. And then I want to share my experience of it and why I was like, you better send this to me because I need it for myself. And I listen to it all the time. And I jam out to it in the car. I mean, I'm literally like, oh, this is so good. I remember who I am when I listen to this song.
Oh, can you hear my dogs barking in the background?
Nope, all you.
Okay, good. Now my heart is growing like 3 sizes from this fucking episode. Ow, I need to go do some stretches to let it fit in my chest. Okay.
You ever
This
want to know what
song,
pregnancy is like? It is, you're literally expressing it. It's like, ow, this is beautiful. And like, I'm not prepared for this growth and this expansion. And then then your body kind of catches up. And then, so I'm just chuckling because that's been my life. It's kind of fun.
you're amazing. Literally remarkable. Wow. Yeah, so this song emerged within the fluorescence frequency that we're speaking of with Blue Earth and Reggie River Bear. They offer each round of their course, they offer a module called the Divine Creatrix, and it is one of my favorites. Every week is my favorite, but that week it really honestly shifted my world and how I perceive creation and what it means to be in sacred reciprocity with the ideas that visit and honoring the hell out of them, knowing that when creation knocks on your door, it's there for a reason.
Mm.
And just making the space and time to honor and invite it in and out. So we had a module of that nature, and I just felt in my body the validity of mantra music. I'd always known it, but I never gave myself permission to write or capture or yeah, just record it in my own world. I always my technical classical upbringing in the music world landed me with this conditioning and framework that music had to be complex and very lyric filled and an AABA structure, and the chords couldn't just be a 1 4 5 1. Like it had to be very technical and interesting in order to be worthy. And I just found that belief humorous after this module, and mantra music just began to visit me and I made space for it. And so this was the first ever mantra song I took seriously, and I was sitting on my ground in my little casita at the time, and I was just playing this big fat singing bowl, and I was like, I'm ready for any little thing that wants to come through. I am a vessel. If you'd like to visit, I will give you the time of day. And so a sweet mantra came through of I am good, I am worthy of all I say, do, choose, and move through. I'm good, I am worthy, again and
Mm.
again and again. And it was the medicine I needed in that moment. And I still say it all the time. I said it right before I jumped on this call today, to just anchor in the worthiness
Mm.
of any moment and expression and the goodness inherent in us. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, and you played it, you sang it for us in our smaller accountability container. And then I guess somehow you might have said, like, I've got a recorder. I think we were like, we need this like now. And I think you said you had the recording already and you shared it with us. And then I was like, oh, why is this not all over the internet? And why is this not on Spotify? And like, I need to share this with people. And I actually did send it to some of my friends, just like, this. I'm like, I don't know if I asked you for permission first for that
You
or not.
did.
I was
You
like,
did.
okay. I was like, you need to hear this. And yeah, and I think and this is why I wanted to bring you on the show, because I know that's been a piece that you've been moving through, is cultivating your leadership as a voice doula and also putting yourself out there more and self-expressing. And again, just those of us that have received from you recording that song and sharing it, just how powerful it's been. I mean, I'm telling you, there's times, same thing, where it'll be stuck in my head. It's stuck in my head. It's one of those songs that it's like, oh, I need to go listen to that. Or I just will recite it on my own as well. And so just for you to truly receive how potent it is and how timely it is and how needed it is. And of course, no rush and no pressure, but I feel like the world might be waiting for more mantra music from Elle and whatever else wants to be birthed from you. So I just want to play a little snippet of what you recorded, if that's okay with you. I didn't ask permission.
Full
And I
body, yes.
would, okay, so it's a yes. And I would love for, yeah, just both of us to close our eyes for a moment and, yeah, to receive it in this way. I think would be fun because, of course, you've heard it, you recorded it, you recite it all the time, but it might hit you a bit differently. And I want I want our community to get a little taste of what's to come in the world of Elle Knowlton, because I know that you're just getting started. So how does that sound?
That was really good, Lizzie.
All right, we're doing the damn thing.
I am good and I am worthy of all I say, do, choose, and move through. I am good and I am worthy inherently and in
things that I do. I am good, and I am worthy of all I say, do, choose, and move through. I am good, and I am worthy inherently, and in all things that I do. I am good, and I am worthy of all I say, do, choose, and move through. I am good, and I am worthy inherently, and in all things that I do. I am good, and in all, and I am worthy, and in all of all I say, do, choose, and move through. I am good, and I am worthy inherently, and in all things that I do. I am good, and I am worthy of all I say, do, choose, and move through. I am good, and I am worthy inherently, and in all things that I do. I am good, and I am worthy.
That's just a little taste of Elle's magical mantra music. I can't wait for more. How did that feel for you?
I hadn't listened in a while. That was really beautiful. It just affirms for me what mantra can do. Like to say it enough times that you then begin to believe it
Right?
is always such a mystical experience. So thank you for creating space for that. That was a real, real beautiful honor. I feel so loved and seen by you. I'm buzzing.
And like I said, no pressure, but I would love to share this with the masses when you're ready. And yeah, so I know you've got a podcast of your own. I think you might even have two podcasts of your own. And I would love to hear just how people can access you, get in touch with you, know what offerings you have, and kind of what's in store for the future. Because like I said, I know this is only the beginning.
Thank you. Yeah. So I do have a podcast of my own with one of my soul sisters. It's called The Sacred Vortex Podcast. Weekly episodes. We've had it for about 2 years. It is my pride and joy on this planet. You can totally find me online. On Instagram is where I'm most dropped in at Elle.Knowlton. And feel free to DM me. I don't have a website yet, but she's in the works. And if you feel called to drop into your vocal center and be witnessed and loved on hard in that process, I am here. That is the work I'm doing. And if it resonates, it would be an honor to work with you. So feel free to reach out on Instagram.
I want to work with you.
Oh my God.
I have no idea what that would look like, but I'm like, yes, please. My body's saying yes. So, yeah, this is, again, I don't know. I mean, I know to some degree why Spirit was like, bring her on the show. And I mean, it was a little impulse, and I was moving through some things over the last few weeks. Hence, if you've been tuning into my podcast episodes, the crying on air and off the air. And I just kept receiving this as my mic falls. I just kept receiving this impulse, like bring her on the show, bring her on the show, bring her on the show. And anything that I can do to help steward these next steps for you and what that looks like. And again, your essence is needed in the world, and any way that I could be like a small fractal of that feels delicious. And I meant every single word.
And it was felt and received. Bless you fully. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. So thank you for saying yes. And is there any final words you want to leave our beloved community with.
Mm. Yeah, just lean into that lens of love, y'all. It feels so good and it's so accessible. Just shine up that monocle whenever whenever your cup is full enough to do so, and bless the magic that it enacts. We experienced it here today, and I'm so grateful for who you are and who you be in the world. It's an honor to know you.
Right back at you, sister. I feel so full.
Me too, dude. Wow.
I'm like, can every interaction with humanity be like this? It would be so delicious. Yeah, so I know we hadn't caught up in a bit. I've been in my moving and mamahood portal, and it just felt so nourishing. And we definitely get to stay connected, and everything that Elle described is going to be in the show notes. And please reach out to her and myself and let us know what resonated, what landed. Again, as we shared and showcased, it really does matter. I know sometimes we think like, they don't want to hear from us, or I don't want to bother them, or it doesn't matter, or I'm too busy. And just those little micro moments of showcasing appreciation, just sharing your heart, opening up vulnerably, saying thank you, or saying what triggered you, saying what didn't land. All of it matters, all of it's sacred. So just, finding those micro moments to take the pause to reach out if you're feeling the impulse from spirit and from the essence of you. So with that, we're doing a part 2. I feel it.
I'm ready.
And yeah, I'm just grateful for you staying the extra time, and for going in all the places that this conversation took us. And until next time, everyone, much love and blessings.